Alright, call the City of Clear Lake Shores City Council regular meeting January 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. to order. We have a full quorum. All council members are present. Item 2, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Texas flag. Alright, item number 3, reports from council. Councilman Steve Wirtes.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Wirtes. Councilman Rick Fisher.
I just want to say, hope everybody had a great Christmas and a good New Year. Hope God nobody else got stuck out there in the middle of the debacle that happened last week, flying around. Wasn't my fault, I was on vacation. Parks and Pool Committee is not going to have a meeting this month. They're probably going to meet in February. We're going to try and discuss a few things. One of them about getting the new gate code entry system for the pool and for possibly City Hall and getting something worked out with that. But other than that, nothing to report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fisher. Councilwoman Monica Ledang.
Aside from to say, hope everybody had a great New Year's, nope, nothing to report.
Thank you, Ms. Ledang. Councilman Alex Scanlon.
Roads and Drainage met last week. It was a good meeting. It was well attended, so it was good to see some faces out. I guess putting addresses on the agenda will do that. Get the homeowners out. Brant was there. It was nice having you there, Brant. Appreciate it. Seems like Brant has some good experience doing similar projects or similar scale projects in his other employments, so I think that's going to be beneficial to us in the short term. So looking forward to that. And then I'll just say I'm pretty frustrated with the budget process over the last 3 or 4 months, and I'm trying to make sense of it. I found I'd asked my fellow council members to look at the current budget and look at what we approved and see if you find any discrepancies. I know specifically the one item that we motioned to change in September was not changed in the current budget. I don't know if anything else in there is incorrect, but I'd encourage you to look at it and double check and make sure you're happy with it. I'll be bringing that back to council at the next opportunity I get. Really discovered it pretty recently, so I'm not totally up to speed.
Thank you, Councilman Scanlon. Councilman Randy Chronister.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chronister. Just a couple of things for myself. With the KEMA, Clear Lake Shores Volunteer Fire Department, just put our prayers out for Steve Rutherson. He lost his wife, Rebecca. She was part of that fire department for over 20 years, and so they had complications in surgery, and she passed away, unfortunately. And then also, just to let you know that it looks like fire fees will probably be going up to about $9.50, and that's to handle the current operations budget within the ESB that's controlled, ESB controls for the fire department. And hopefully to continue putting away a rainy day fund of around $750,000 for the fire department. So if anything happens there, they've got something similar to what we have in Clear Lake Shores. And other than that, everyone hopefully had a happy New Year and a good holiday over their time and meeting with all their family. Next is item 4, staff reports. Police Department Interim Chief David Donaldson.
Mayor, Council, traffic contacts for the month of December was 108. Driving while intoxicated was 1. Narcotic offenses, we had 6. Accidents, 4. 1 assault. 3 thefts. And arrest and warrants together, we've arrested 16 individuals. Assist other agency, 4. Residential checks, 100. Business checks, 536. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. City Administrator, Interim City Administrator, Brant Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, members of staff, and the public. Happy New Year as well. Not a lot to report since the last meeting. Obviously, we had a few holidays thrown in there. However, one item that I was not able to get information for last time, I did get information for today, and so I'll pass that along. And it is concerning the boat ramp project that's out there. And that project is construction of a new boat ramp, and it's going to extend the ramp by about 20 feet. It'll remove some of the unusable timber pier, to construct 2 new piers, and it'll also have LED solar lighting on it. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has approved the project, and so we do have an approval letter from them. What we're waiting on now is the Texas General Land Office. As soon as the GLO approves the lease, we should be ready to go to bid. As of now, the plans are about 95% complete according to the project engineer. I think the only thing that they're still working on is getting the LED solar lighting included in the plans. They estimate probably about 30 days to advertise once we do go out, and work schedule, they estimate about 90 days. Obviously, that's going to depend on weather and conditions and whatnot, but I did want to pass that information along since I wasn't able to provide that last time. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
So you're saying once they start, it's 90 days till they complete that project?
That's their estimate.
Concrete also?
They're saying that, yeah, entire work schedule 90 days. That seems optimistic,
That seems
but hey, we'll
good.
take it.
We've been waiting a while, so that's good news.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Brant. Item number 5, public comments. At this time, any person with city-related business may speak to the city council. If the topic of discussion is related to an item on the agenda, the comments may be made now or at the time the agenda item is discussed. If the topic of discussion is not related to an item on the agenda, the city council cannot deliberate or take any action at this time. Comments from the public should be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per individual. Anybody like to speak from the public? Having none, public comments is closed. Item number 6, anybody or any city council want to pull a item from consent agenda consisting of A and B?
I'd like to pull item A.
Pulling item A. Does anybody have an objection to approving the consent agenda with item B only? Having none, consent agenda is accepted with item B only. Under new business, item 7 will take care of item A, check register 1215-22 through 1228-22.
I'm not following you.
Huh? You said you wanted it pulled, so I pulled it.
Oh, okay.
So now it's in new business, item A, check register 1215-22 through 1228-22. So I would assume you were gonna make a motion or discussion for, something for discussion about it.
Yeah, I'd like to motion to, I guess, discuss the item. There's a $50,000 check written for line item on the budget 119596, I believe. But I think that needs to be pulled off the check register.
Need a second
Second.
too? All right. Motion by Alex, second by Mr. Cronister. Discussion?
This line item was written against budget line 119596, which was prior to the, amendment to the motion on the 9/20 meeting was 35,000, and the, motion in the 9/20 meeting was to reduce that to 25,000, so that didn't get amended in the budget, when the final one was published, and additionally, that line on this check register, that check is written in excess of the budgeted amount, which is, I believe, problematic, and then the check was written, I'm not exactly sure what it was written for, but it doesn't seem like a general improvement, which is what the line it's allotted for in the budget is. So there's just a whole lot of things going on with it that seem incorrect, so I wanted to pull it off the consent agenda.
Yeah, so that item has been identified, and it is coming out of EDC funds. It's for the payment of the property, up on 614, FM 2094. So we need to amend that, a recommendation is to amend that report and bring it back next time. Please.
So if that's coming from EDC funds, why did we write the check?
That's because it came out of general funds.
Right, but we,
That should be out of EDC funds, not our general funds.
You're absolutely correct. It was a mistake.
Okay, so who wrote the check?
The finance person, Cheryl Hunter.
So it was a $50,000 check that was written out of city funds. There's not a specific line item on it. There was not a budget amendment for that. There was never a meeting to get approval for that. And if I'm reading this ordinance correctly, maximum that can be written without any kind of approval like that's $10,000. That's $40,000 over.
But the council approved the $50,000 for EDC.
we approved EDC to purchase the property at a meeting. It was, I believe, prior to the 9/20 meeting, but we never, that was EDC funds. The funds that were used to write this check, which were in excess of the budgeted amount for that line item for a different purpose, weren't EDC funds either. So that's really three missteps there in the check. That was, I assume, signed by our city administrator.
No, it's never been signed. It's never been cashed because the check has not been used yet.
But it was on the check register, so it was, I mean, it was ready to go unless we caught this today. So it had to have been signed.
Well, that's incorrect. There's a new check that's written through EDC.
Which was written today.
I don't know.
I think you know.
Huh?
I think we know. I think we know the check was written today.
Okay.
I guess it's a mystery. We just write $50,000 checks in the city of Clear Lake Shores, and nobody knows who signs them or when they were written.
No, that's incorrect, but
Can you fill us in then?
the check was caught, and so it's been removed, and now it's underneath EDC. There was a question whether it goes underneath EDC or it has to come out of general fund. With property being purchased from EDC, there's rules.
All right, I think the question Rick was asking, and I'd like to ask it too, is who wrote the check for $50,000 and out of the general
Sure.
fund?
Our
Who
finance
approved,
person.
Okay,
who
who
approved
signed
writing
it?
that check?
Huh?
Who approved writing that check?
Who
It was
signed the check?
requested by me to write a check.
But again, that was approved to go through EDC, not through the general fund of the city.
That was a question whether it came from EDC or general funds. Sometimes we transfer EDC funds into general fund to pay for that property. So that was getting clarified.
Okay, well, there was something in here about a transfer from a EDC fund to our general fund. All I see in there is a check being written.
Is there no procedure for going through some type of approval or any documentation showing that that's the plan? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they do electronic transfer, but I don't know if Brant was involved at all.
I'm not familiar with the specifics, but it sounds like the check was written to from the wrong account, and so that check needs to be voided and a new check issued. if that's the case, then, you know, we certainly can make sure that happens.
My understanding is that's already happened, correct? That happened this afternoon,
Okay.
but
So, I think, it would certainly be appropriate if, you know, consistent with the spirit of the motion to, perhaps provide, just the documentation for that to council if council desires. We can certainly do that. I can't speak to, the specifics of what happened, with the budget, but if it is correct that it was budgeted for and approved in the EDC fund, then we can certainly provide the documentation, for the 2 checks.
okay, I'll amend my motion to resolve this and bring the check register report back at the next meeting. I'd also ask Brent that you, maybe help us understand how this process is supposed to work as far as when funds are being transferred with a check written against the budget for a line item that's not what they're actually for, and that the plan is to bring money in from somewhere else to make up for them later. I mean, it sounds confusing, it sounds like I'm rambling, but that's because it doesn't make any sense to me either.
I'll admit I'm not fully aware of, the ins and outs, but, we can certainly get that information and provide it to council.
That would be appreciated.
So it seems like before the check was even written, there should have been an approval. Listening to this, there should have been an approval from council to write a check for that amount of money.
There was a purchase agreement that we entered into with Derek McBaney, and that was part of the initial purchase for the title company, is we would pay the $50,000 upfront, and that's what that check was for. Because we thought we were going to close on that property, and so we issued a check to close on the property, and then the title work didn't get all worked out, so the check has just been holding.
Right, I did see the email that you copied me on, and I remember approving that purchase for the EDC. I made the motion, but I guess I'm confused like them. Does the EDC not have their own checkbook? So why wasn't the check written from there to begin with? And if not, and we were gonna pay it from a different account, it seems like that should have been approved by council for that amount of money. I understand what you're asking. So, we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be writing checks for that amount of money without approval first. I think that's the whole point, right?
Regardless of whether or not it's gonna be paid back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, sounds kinda fishy, really. I mean, why are we writing that check for $50,000? Isn't there a limit we can spend without council's approval for that anyway?
Absolutely.
And why wasn't it coming out of that account to begin with? That is confusing.
Yep. So we can look into it and bring it back.
So we don't have a proper protocol in place to prevent something like this from happening again? Or was protocol violated?
I do not know, and the finance person would be the one to know about that.
It's not unusual sometimes for the city to write a check and then EDC to reimburse.
Reimburse that account.
That's pretty common. That's the way we've done it in the past sometimes. It just depends. I don't know whose name, who's gonna hold the property, if it's gonna be Plaza 10, you know, who's gonna hold it, that have anything to do with it or not. So there may be 2 or 3 moving parts to it. You got Plaza 1006, you got EDC, and you got the city. Nothing wrong with the city writing a check because it's been approved by the city, the way I'm hearing it. And then EDC would just, it's just a transfer, actually electronic transfer, a check to replace that money. So it's, you know, it just has to make, all those steps have to be followed. And then, and whatever check signing requirements are for the checks, I don't know. I think it's over 10,000, takes 2 signatures, or is that not, I don't know.
If
No,
it's
they're
over
all signed
$10,000,
by
if it's
two.
budgeted, if it's an approved item in the budget, you can write up to $10,000 without council approval. Above $10,000, you've gotta have approval. And so, I mean, regardless if it's gonna be paid back or not, I don't care if it's been done like that in the past. If there's gonna be a check written for $50,000, it needs to get approved, it needs to go through the proper channels. I mean, it just sounds very
Right,
shady and
so-
underhanded doing it this way.
EDC approved it, and then y'all approved us, so it has been approved. We would
No, that hasn't been approved through the city. That was approved for EDC to pay for it, not for the city. The check should not,
not to pay for it, right?
Right, so the EDC was approved, the city had written a check, and I think the intent was to be reimbursed. And that's what we've done in the past.
still
So
writing a
that's what I'm
$50,000
going
check
off
like
of.
that without approval or, you know.
I'm just going off of what we've done in the past with other similar type properties.
So we can write a check against any line item in the budget, regardless if it's relevant or not, with the non-documented promise to pay it back from another entity and hope that someone does it? Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
That's how we've done it?
it was approved, both the EDC and the city budget, or city, council meeting to write the check.
It was
there's
approved for
also
the EDC
6
to write the
checks.
check. It was not approved for the city to write the check.
Okay, we can agree to disagree. In any case,
Who signed the check?
I was one signature.
Does it require one signature or two?
It requires 2.
Two, okay.
Do I need to amend my motion?
No, your amended motion, I believe, is to resolve the incorrect check that was written and to bring back to council what the proper, the account should be, and then that the check should go against the EDC. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I need a second.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Scanlon, second by Mr. Chronister. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Having none, motion passes. Additional new business, executive session. A governmental body may conduct an executive session to discuss matters dealing with individual officers or employees. Specifically, this exception allows governmental bodies to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee.